In the hidden depths of an underground research base, inhuman experimentation was being conducted by scientists under the watchful eye of the Soviet Empire. Their mission: to create a new breed of warrior, a super soldier, combining unparalleled tactical abilities, a wild fanaticism for the Soviet cause, and the latest in high-tech cybernetics. Not bound by ethics and without the constraints of morality, they pursued their goal doggedly. They would need a man of rare talent and loyalty to use in their experiments, but where to find such an individual? In the closing stages of the Second World War, both the Allies and the Soviets would increasingly turn to advanced research projects in an effort to tip the scales in their favour. One such project undergoing development in France caught the eye of Stalin himself, the phase tank, and he dispatched a trusted commander to recover the vehicle for himself. Working alongside the commander would be one of Russia's most capable agents, Volkov. Infiltrating the base alone, save for his canine compatriot Chitskoy, Volkov methodically worked his way through the facility, dispatching dozens of guards and scientists alike. Anyone who stood in his way was soon eliminated, and the sole prototype fell into Soviet hands. Working in conjunction with a small strike team, Volkov was able to lay waste to the research facility and ensure that Allied experimentation with stealth technology came to a premature end. Stalin was pleased, but his new toy did little to reverse the increasingly desperate situation the Soviets found themselves in. Soon, one group of fanatics took matters into their own hands. Prepared to risk annihilation, they made plans to unleash a deadly biological weapon against the encroaching Allies. The results would have been disastrous for the world. Only a single option remained for the Soviet commanders: the complete and utter destruction of the renegade faction. It was a suicide mission. Should they even manage to pull off the impossible and infiltrate the island stronghold, dispatch the guards and prevent the launch of the biological warheads, the Soviet plan of action called for the deployment of nuclear weapons on the silos to ensure they were removed from existence. One man stepped forward. Volkov would make landfall from the south after the way through hostile waters was cleared by a naval detachment. From there, he would head inland toward the center of the complex, dragging behind him by the lab coat a Soviet scientist. No doubt this individual was mercifully spared the details of what fate awaited all those left standing on the island once the trio of nuclear-equipped strike craft that were currently racing towards them were given the all-clear. The bombs fell, the base and its occupants were obliterated, and disaster was averted. But at the heart of the explosions, one man found shelter. Crawling from the debris, blackened by ash and nuclear fire, Volkov emerged as a survivor. But this came at a cost. Unwittingly perhaps, Volkov had just volunteered himself for the same Soviet research project that sought to create the ultimate soldier. He soon found himself under the needles and scalpels of the scientists gathered around him on the operating table, but not before they first got their eye in on his loyal companion Chitskoy. What emerged from that underground facility was an abomination. Whereas once Volkov had been an elite agent trained for espionage, surgical strikes, assassinations and sabotage, this new Volkov was a sledgehammer, a battering ram, a tank. No longer was he equipped with conventional small arms, but rather experimental heavy weaponry that would have been more at home mounted on a vehicle 20 times his size. And his new frame had other advantages. Mortal wounds became mere scratches on his cybernetic limbs. A direct hit from the cannon of a tank solicited little more than a flinch. But where to deploy this new superweapon? The Soviets had suffered from the defection of a prominent scientist, Dr. Dmitri, who brought with him the secrets of his experimental armor plating that had recently been tested on a handful of super tanks, and more secretly in Volkov's own augmentation. Setting up a new research base under the protection of the Allies, Volkov was dispatched to counter this betrayal and to seek retribution. Neither side was prepared for the ensuing carnage that began to take hold in the mountainous terrain around the complex. Volkov and Chitskoy carved a path of bloody destruction through the terrified Allied defenders. It was not the first time Soviet experiments had gone too far. Computer-controlled monster tanks, the deadly biological agent, perhaps even atomic weapons themselves. There was no putting a stopper back in that bottle. Volkov began to close on his target. Stepping forward to face him was another agent whose reputation during the war had made her infamous. Tanya was a true nemesis for the Soviets and a perennial thorn in their side. Their brief fight did not even slow Volkov, and without any fanfare the Allies lost a key asset, both in Tanya and in the research base. Afraid of what they had just unleashed on the world, the Soviets quickly halted further production of the new super soldiers and powered Volkov down. This would be their undoing, however, as a retaliatory strike by the Allies gave them an opportunity to capture Volkov, whereupon they spirited him away to a secure base in Spain. Facing another disaster of their own making, the Soviets drew up plans to prevent the Allies from using Volkov against them, prevent at any cost. Exactly what happened next is lost to history. When Allied investigators picked their way through the rubble, they could find no trace of Volkov's remains. Whether the Soviets had found a way to safely extract him, or whether they were forced to take extreme measures, remains unknown. His ultimate fate remains as big a mystery as his sketchy past. Rumours circulate of his involvement in the Soviet sarin gas project, where rescued civilians tell of a sadistic man who would imprison or execute anyone who crossed him. Further tales suggest he was the mastermind behind a hostage situation that developed towards the end of the war, a crisis that was ultimately resolved by Tanya herself. Could it be that the two had crossed swords in the past? In truth, it seems unlikely that any of these were Volkov, but rather other zealous Soviet officers whose crimes have simply been misattributed to the cyborg commando. The full story is likely to remain lost forever. If he did survive the raid on the Allied base where he was being held captive, he has not since resurfaced in the decades that followed. Perhaps he fled into a reclusive retirement, or perhaps he still serves to this day with forces unknown.